Emmerdale once again coming in ninth place in my soap opera rankings for March, just like in February. Mostly because of how boring it is. It is up there. It's between GH and Emmerdale on which soap opera is currently the most boring these last 2 months. It was coming very close to Emmerdale being in 10th place. It was not going to be last place because Days is just so unwatchable to me. But it came close to being pretty low on my list, or even lower than it already is, I guess. But I will get to the reason why it is not 10th place and it stays in 9th place. One big deal with the show is they're trying to keep Mina on the show because this was their, I guess, the source of most of their over-the-top drama was Mina, the over-the-top serial killer. They've been keeping her around, using her in prison, using her pleading not guilty to some of her crimes at her trial. Mina set up Manpreet by basically using Charles to get Manpreet to go there, and Manpreet comes and she goads Manpreet into attacking her in prison. And so Manpreet's part of the story is she kind of having a nervous breakdown or a mental breakdown because of the shit Mina's put her through. But for me, it just doesn't connect because of how ridiculous Mina's story was. It's kind of hard for me to take the aftermath seriously because I didn't take the actual story seriously because it had just bad, dumbed down writing that I give a lot of flack for that on a lot of these soap operas. We had some Chaz and Charity drama. I did not care. It was Woolpack drama. I've already stated how they've made the Woolpack boring. I don't care who has the Woolpack. I'm sorry. I don't care because they're just keeping it among Dingle drama, and it's just so hard for me to get into most of this Dingle drama. Not all of it. We'll get to that. But then we also have Dawn and her ex. Dawn basically had to set up her ex because he was threatening Curtis, and that was a whole debacle of a story there. And then we had the younger set. I still enjoyed the Noah part of things. He basically used Amelia to make Chloe jealous, but just ended up humiliating Amelia, and Chloe didn't even care. But the younger set doesn't get a lot of screen time, so I can't even enjoy that because we don't actually get to see that often. Now let's get to something Emmerdale did right, or did good at least, is that I was, until this last week and a half, I was really going to put Emmerdale in 10th place and have General Hospital be one spot over it. But then Emmerdale, Marlon had a stroke. That's what happened on Emmerdale. Marlon had a stroke, and I have to commend Emmerdale for actually making it so scary. They did a really good job of depicting the stroke and Marlon just being lost in his head, not able to speak, collapsed on the ground. He could speak in his head, but nobody could hear him. He did a really good job playing that, the actor whose name escapes me at this point in time. But I thought they pulled that off really well. The directing was great, the acting was great, and it came across really scary. And I don't even want to think about ever having a stroke or any of my loved ones having a stroke, because that shit is scary. So because of that episode in particular and the next one, it was only 2 episodes. I mean, it's still going. Obviously, Marlon's in the hospital. He still can't speak from the last episode I watched a couple days ago. And this all took place after Rhonda and Marlon, who had had some troubles, especially when it came to proposing to each other, actually proposed. They both proposed at the same time. So it was a cute thing that led to this disaster, I guess. But yeah, Emmerdale did really good pulling off this stroke. It made for real life horror, because the stroke is some real life horror. And I just could not put General Hospital ahead of Emmerdale after that, because General Hospital and Days of Our Lives could never give a moment like that these days. That is just actually both engrossing and scary and just like real life horror. They did a really good job pulling that off. So it saved it from dropping even further in my rankings, but Emmerdale is still pretty low because most of the show is just boring, and they're getting closer to the 50th anniversary of Emmerdale, and they are just limping right along to that 50th, sadly. But for now, Emmerdale stays in 9th place, but the Stroke storyline, it seems like they're going to do a good job with it. Because, in general, I don't really care about Marlon, but he did a good job acting, and the story is there, so they've sucked me into it, and that is all I can ask from a soap opera, even though it's just one of their storylines. But it's better than having no good storylines like Days of Our Lives.